How do you see the next 12 months? What areas or what pockets do you see potential good growth? When do agents sell for cheap? Thanks for coming, Richard. First, maybe a little self-intro.
Yeah, no problem. So, Richard Faludi, grew up in the eastern suburbs in Coogee. My parents still live there. Went to school at Emmanuel, graduated from there, did a diploma in advertising and marketing, and kind of just fell into real estate about 8 years ago, maybe 9. Was working at another firm, and then about 3 years ago transitioned to Raine and Horne in Double Bay.
How do you see the next 12 months? Is it going to be as strong as the last few years, or any changes, you reckon?
So I think this year will be a positive 12 months. As I mentioned, last year ebbed and flowed a little bit, and there were patches where it was strong, patches where it was a little bit weaker. Whereas I think this year, with talk of rate decreases fueling the fire, supply remaining low, and immigration obviously at high levels, things are going to be in a positive direction.
So you're saying it's stronger than last year, but last year Bellevue Hill already went crazy. So you said that's going to keep going?
I think it'll just continue along the same trend. You know, if you look at the eastern suburbs property market, it never really goes down, historically speaking. It'll go up, hit a new benchmark, and then stay at that level and then go up again. I suppose it is hard to kind of forecast 12 months in advance, but one has to think that when they do start cutting rates, that's going to allow more people to enter the market.
Yep.
And if supply remains low, which I suppose is a bit of an unknown, things should be pretty strong.
So you've done a lot of great sales in the Rose Bay side of Bellevue Hill in the last 12 months. What's special about the area?
Proximity to elite schooling, proximity to the harbour side, and just generally to kind of the beaches and villages within the eastern suburbs. It's probably the most centralised suburb. And so that offers a lot from a lifestyle perspective for an incoming purchaser.
Okay, what are people looking for in that range?
I think generally speaking, what's happened in the last 12 to 24 months is that building costs have gone up so significantly that there's now a strong pool of buyers that were looking to renovate or execute on a DA that are now fleeting towards done product. And so if I look at the sales that I've had that have been really strong and other agents across the board, it's been turnkey opportunities where someone can just move in with their family without having to do anything. And those are the properties that are seeing a massive upscale in pricing.
So we're talking about like literally 15 million for a starting point for a turnkey home in Bellevue Hill. Like, you think there will be affordability issues on this if this keeps going like this?
I think there will be affordability issues for a certain percentage of people. Like we talk about immigration. If you're moving from the UK, the US or Asia, if you look at the Australian dollar where it's sitting versus their dollar, it's still relatively cheap versus someone living locally. They may struggle a bit more because obviously they don't have the benefit of a lower transition cost.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Bellevue Hill is I think a lot of people's minds, Chinese pushed up the price there. But if you look at, say, Vaucluse, Rhoda, and those areas, like if you have the whole bridge view and everything, pretty much 80-90% it's a Chinese buyer. But if you look in Bellevue Hill, these big prices in the last 12 months, more than 50% are local buyers.
Yeah, amazing. Because I think since COVID, a lot of people have made a lot of money in certain fields, and they're the ones buying up this properties rather, or they're trading up from a smaller asset to a larger asset. They've got a lot of equity in their properties, which they're capitalising on the strength of the market and then using those funds to scale up the property ladder.
So you'd say it's still a healthy market?
Yeah,
definitely.
I think so.
Obviously, you cover all the way from Double Bay to Vaucluse. What areas or what pockets do you see potential good growth?
I think just generally in Vaucluse, like it's such a big suburb, right? And I think that for a long time, the harbour side part of Vaucluse has always been strong. Whereas I think now you may have a similar trend towards what's happening in Bellevue Hill. If you look at the top 3 streets in Bellevue Hill being Victoria, Kambala and Ginagalla, they're so stratospherically expensive now that I think people are fleeting towards other streets like Fairweather or a Vivian, where we've seen a lot of strong pricing just by way of nature. You may have a similar trend in Vaucluse where your Fitzwilliams, your Coolong roads, etc. are on the way to being so expensive that people are going to have to fleet to other streets and then see pricing in those streets go up.
Where's the potential streets?
I think Burrabirra, Bowen Billy, maybe even Hopetown Avenue. Like there's been quite a few strong sales along Hopetown Avenue lately. You know, you're still getting that lifestyle offering where you can walk to the beach or Cuddy Beach, Gibson's Beach, but obviously you're not on the water or as close to. Don't know if you're satisfied with that answer.
It's lifestyle. Don't worry, we'll get there. We're seeing underquotes, overquotes, then adjusting after overquoting. What's your thoughts on this, and what's your style?
I think it's hard to, as an agent, go in and say unequivocally this is the price, because the agent doesn't set the price, nor does the owner. And I think that both agent and owner can have an opinion on pricing. I mean, as an agent, you can look at kind of the data sets and have a bit of a gut feel, but often if the market's on an upwards trajectory, the data you're looking at's here, but the market's already here. So that can then result in, I suppose, underquoting. Overquoting is sometimes, I think, caused by an agent going into a property and maybe trying to win the listing on that basis. I suppose my style is, just being open with the owner and saying, look, the reality is this is where I think it should be, but let's run a process, and that process, provided we build the right environment and build competition, is going to yield the best outcome. And then it's up for you to make an informed decision.
We definitely know some agents out there are known for underquoting to get more people in the door, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
I don't feel that it does work, because what happens is you're actually attracting the wrong buyer. If you're guiding 6 and your owner wants 8.5, 9, just for example, those buyers coming through at 6, you're going to get a lot of them, but they're not going to be able to ultimately get to where the owner wants to be.
Yep.
And so I think there has to be a happy medium almost. I mean, I sold a property 46 Maribri Road in North Bondi a couple of weeks ago.
Great house, yeah.
Awesome house. Previously on the market with another agent, owner wanted 7 or close to. They were guiding 5.8, didn't sell it. I took it on, guided 6.3 and got to the outcome. And I think that's because I was actually attracting the buyers who had the right capacity to get to the owner's outcome.
So Raine and Horne Double Bay has a long history with a lot of strong agents. Like back then it was like an agent powerhouse. You had Michael Pallier, Brad Pinger, the Goldmans, Paul Biller. What's the company culture like now? How do you see the future of the company?
I think it's really good. I think culturally it's a really good company to be working in. There's a lot of camaraderie. And, from a business perspective, there's a lot of cross-pollination between buyers and sellers within the office, which is nice to have that kind of collaborative culture, because, ultimately that does get the vendor the best outcome. I think that it's now the youth that are coming up. I'd like to be considered, but obviously Dion Markovitz, Hernan, Paul, Alex, and just being led by Rick. So I think it's a really good company to work at, and I think we've got a bright future ahead.
When do agents sell for cheap?
They sell for cheap when it's off market, or when it's on market and it's sold very quickly like this. Like, I think that in order to maximize price, you have to expose it to the widest band of buyers, and you're not doing that in an off-market scenario. So I think that there are a percentage of owners who want to run an off-market process, which I think there's value in that before you go to market, just to get a sense on what the heartbeat is regarding price, because as I said, until you get buyers through, you're not genuinely going to know. But then I think you have to progress it to on market.
So I think the two scenarios you said, there's two ways to it. So number one, for off market, for me being a buyer's agent, I think 80% of the off market in the whole market, overpriced stuff. It's more trying their luck in different ways. And number two is the on-market. That comes to my next question. I'm a bit surprised with your answer is, if you sell really quick through a campaign, usually you get a big price that satisfies the vendor to sell. How does that become cheap?
The thing is, you don't know what you don't know. So if you sell something in a week after one open, how do you know you couldn't have achieved more the week after? Sometimes the best buy comes the day of the auction. Maybe cheap's the wrong word, but I suppose it's hard to establish if it was cheap or not. But I just think you want to let breathe and let it run so you can expose it to the most amount of buyers and then make a judgment call around, okay, do we run it to auction? Do we try sell prior?
东区唯一华人背景 Tier 1买家中介，让华人在东区真正拥有优质房屋资源，